Good Monday morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us from the Ohio AgNet Voice You Know with the News You Trust studio, sponsored by Grain Equipment Company, where innovation meets execution. I'm Dale Menyo. Well, it started about 2 weeks ago, but good rainfall over the past 7 to 10 days has allowed soybean planting in central Brazil to start taking off. Soybean planting progress in the state of Mato Grosso is behind the average pace and well behind last year's accelerated pace. The late rainfall has delayed planting significantly. Before the rains came in on October 10th, just 8.8% of total acreage of soybeans had been planted in the state of Mato Grosso, Brazil's largest production state for both corn and soybeans, according to the Mato Grosso Institute of Agriculture Economics. That was behind the average pace of 23.7% over the last 5 years and 35% in accelerated pace in 2023. Since the rain has materialized, soybean planting has increased significantly. However, the pace is not enough to make up ground from the late planting, according to data released October 18th. It showed planting progress had increased 16 points, up to 25% planted. However, this compares to 44% on average and 60% last year. Jumps of 21 and 25% respectively were showing. It appears some producers are still waiting on more substantial rain to bolster their production. Producers have 2 weeks until planting is considered late. Let's check in on our forecast then. Today's weather brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Here's the forecast.
Cold air on the move over Ohio. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin with a look at that Ohio Ag Weather Update. Taking a look at the setup here, cold Canadian high pressure on the move out of Canada down into the Great Lakes region. It's going to be impressive. The north winds that we see across the region today and tomorrow, those north winds are picking up the moisture off of the very, very warm Great Lakes area and are going to deposit it here as cloud cover. I won't rule out spits and sprinkles either. I don't think it's going to be a big deal, but I do think that we can't wave the all-clear flag yet. That being said, I don't expect we see any more than probably 25-30% coverage today or tomorrow, and it's going to be more impressive as you get up to near the Lake Erie shoreline, but clouds can be popping up pretty much everywhere across the region today and tomorrow. Also, frost and freeze conditions in here right about the time that we normally see our first frost, at least over parts of Ohio. So gear up for that. Make sure you're covering or taking inside any tender vegetation. Now we get on the backside of this Canadian high Wednesday afternoon. South flow starts to kick up. Temperatures warm up dramatically for the end of this week, Thursday, Friday, for the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, and for all of next week. We see a lot of sunshine in there. Frontal boundary moving out of the plains and into the central Corn Belt dies with regard to moisture, at least once it hits the Mississippi River. So I think we see some late weekend, early next week scattered showers in Michigan, but nothing in Ohio. We're going to stay dry right on through the rest of next week here, so good opportunity to continue with harvest. I'm meteorologist Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. Joining me is Andy Farnham. He's the owner and salesman for an irrigation company, AG Irrigation. They're right here in Ohio. And Andy, give us an update. Could we have helped our position this past season if we had irrigation?
Oh, irrigation would have helped tremendously this last year, especially in those regions southwest of Columbus, up and down that area where the drought was really primarily affecting that area.
How much water does it take to have a good irrigation system to be able to use it?
There's a lot of rules of thumb, right? Everybody's got something. Corn and alfalfa are your highest water usage crops commercially grown, and they take about a quarter inch per day during their highest growing season. So, that July, August time frame, you need a quarter inch per day per acre. So that equates to 5 gallons per minute per acre, but that's on, your sandier, loamier soils. If you have clay soils that hold a little bit more water, you can be lower than that. A 100-acre system, 500 gallon a minute water source. But that doesn't necessarily have to come from a well. That can come from a pond, a stream, a ditch, a creek, all kinds of different stuff.
Well, that was my next question. Where does it come from? But by far, are most of them wells, or are they surface holdback?
In Ohio, we don't have a tremendous supply of groundwater across the state. We do have good aquifers kind of up in the northwest corner. We have a decent aquifers up and down 23 along the rivers, that area, and then around Urbana, Springfield areas. We're getting more and more using surface water, either retaining it from drainage tile or pumping it from a ditch into a holding pond and using water there, working with Ohio State on some projects like that with drainage water recycling and reuse.
Andy, is there such a thing as a calculatable ROI for an investment like this?
There is. It's very field dependent again and crop dependent. Right now, years like this where you have a dry year, on average, you're going to pay for a pivot in 5 to 7 years with current market prices. So if corn goes back to $6, which who knows, right?
Right.
That you could pay for a pivot in 3 or 4 years. They're out in the field for 30, 35 years. It's a pretty good ROI once you stretch it out over the life of the pivot.
That's agirrigation.net, correct?
Yes, sir.
Andy, thanks for the update.
Thanks, Dale.
The American Farm Bureau Federation is warning farmers and other rural businesses about the approaching January 1, 2025 deadline to provide business ownership information to the U.S. Treasury Department. The American Farm Bureau is warning farmers and rural businesses they need to file ownership information with the Department of Treasury Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. The Corporate Transparency Act requires most businesses to file the reports by January 1 of 2025. You may have seen the information on this same story in Ohio's Country Journal in the latest issue. The American Farm Bureau Federation estimating more than 230,000 farmers are affected by the beneficial ownership information provisions of the Corporate Transparency Act. AFBF, in its market intel report, notes the BOI requirement applies to any small business that files documents to incorporate with their state business authority, such as their Secretary of State office. This includes corporations, limited partnerships, and LLCs, limited liability companies. Registered businesses must register any beneficial owner of the company with the Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. Looking at 2022 Ag Census data, AFBF noted there are about 230,000 farm operations that reported operating as a partnership under the state law. A family-held corporation or a non-family-held corporation must take care of the data. Filing must include all personal information like addresses, birthdays, and identification numbers for each owner. While this report does not have to be renewed after the initial filing, changes of address, new driver's licenses, or changes of name all require updated filings. Companies created or registered before January 1 of this year have until January 1 of 25 to report their BOI. Companies created in calendar year 2024 have 90 days to file a BOI after creation or registration, and starting January 1 of 25, companies will have 30 days to file. Companies that fail to file by the deadline face a potential $10,000 fine, up to 2 years imprisonment, and civil penalties of $591 per day. Back with more after this.
Did you know soybeans' #1 customer is animal agriculture? That includes Ohio's beef farms. Research from the Soy Checkoff found that U.S. beef operations use over 1.3 million tons of soybean meal every year. That's the meal from about 55 million bushels of U.S. soybeans. Essential protein, energy, and amino acids. High-quality feed for heart-healthy beef. Soybeans, feeding the industry that feeds us. Brought to you by Ohio's soybean farmers and their checkoff.
Hi everyone, this is Dale Minio from the Ohio AgNet. For a quarter of a century, I powered my truck with biodiesel, traveling the state promoting agriculture. Biodiesel is a reliable, high-performance fuel that works in any diesel engine without modification. The best part is that with every mile driven, I'm fueling the economy, doing good for the environment, and supporting soybean farmers. Learn how using biodiesel can add value to every bushel of soybeans grown at soyohio.org. The Federal Trade Commission is investigating whether Deere & Company has violated antitrust and or consumer protection laws in limiting who can repair John Deere equipment. The Federal Trade Commission is investigating right to repair claims leveled at Deere & Company by agricultural groups that filed a petition. Those groups, including the National Farmers Union, state-level farmers unions, along with U.S. Public Interest Research Group, allege John Deere's practice of withholding diagnostic software and other equipment from farmers violated the Sherman Act. On Thursday, a Minnesota-based business analytics company filed a petition to attempt to limit the release of information the FTC has requested as part of an ongoing investigation. In that petition, Hargrove and Associates, Inc. said the commission requested access to a database Hargrove owns that includes what is believed to be sensitive business information connected with members of the Association of Equipment Manufacturers. The FTC has requested access to various data sets and reports relating to agriculture equipment from January 1, 2015 to present. Until now, it was unclear whether the FTC had launched an official investigation, but apparently that information has cleared it up. Time now for the Louis Dreyfus Grain Analysis, brought to you by the Ohio Soybean Council and your soybean checkoff. Here's Ryan Martin.
Grain markets had a rough finish to the week last Friday. Red on the screen everywhere. We're kicking off a new week, hoping for a little bit of a bounce back. But let's take a look at most of the reason behind last Friday's falling off. We had October's supply and demand report. It was just another in a string of very unexciting releases. Now, recall, I think I told you that was going to happen. I just didn't see much happening in this report, but let's talk about what did pop up. Adjustment to the U.S. and world supply and demand estimates largely matched expectations. The focus is returning now immediately to improving world weather forecasts and harvest pressure here in the United States. Late last week, U.S. models had an expansion of Brazilian rainfall in the 6 to 15-day period. Better rain chances also projected across eastern Ukraine and southern Russia here this week, at least today through Thursday. And now the U.S. model is in better alignment with the European and other models in projected soaking rainfall across the plains in the later this week, early next week time frame. That's important for wheat, and so that is something that we really pay attention to. To the supply and demand report, corn yield was raised about 0.2 of a bushel to 183.8. Ending stocks cut 58 million bushels as lower carry-in supplies, which were known, and a 25 million bushel hike in projected exports was more than offset by the production increase. The notes that additional yield are common in November when yield raised in both September and October, so we'll have to see what happens next month. But again, I'm not expecting a whole lot. Total 24-25 supply in Argentina and Brazil were increased to combined 3.6 million metric tons. Importantly, the WASDE trimmed the 24-25 Chinese imports by 2 million metric tons following China's absence from the Brazilian market in late summer and early August. Soy yield lowered gently 0.1 of a bushel per the acre. Production was trimmed to 4 million bushels. Ending stocks untouched. So that was the story of last Friday's report. I'm Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. I'll look to the overnight figures after this.
AmeriHealth Caritas Ohio is your Medicaid plan for more benefits, more rewards. We know that good health means more than just seeing a doctor when you're sick. Eligible members can receive extras like home-delivered meals and family essentials, like baby carriers and kids' school supplies. Members can even earn rewards for playing mobile health trivia games. Learn more at AmeriHealthCaritasOH.com and call the Ohio Medicaid Consumer Hotline at 1-800-324-8680 to choose AmeriHealth Caritas Ohio.
Today's market's brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Well, after Friday's lower figures, slight recovery as we go into the overnight. December corn up 1.5 at 4.06 1/4. March up 1 1/4 at 4.20 1/4 cent. May 4.27 3/4 up 1 1/4. November new crop beans up 6 at 9.76. January up 5 3/4, trading 9.88 1/2, and March up 6 at $10.02 1/4 cent. December wheat up 2 3/4 at 5.75 1/2. March 5.94 1/2 up 2, and July new crop up 2 1/4 at 6.11 1/2 cent. In livestock, October cattle 187.62 up $1. December up $1.15 on Friday at 187.32, and February up $1.15 at 188.12. December lean hogs up 15 cents to 77.82. February up 30 cents at 81.85, and April up 50 cents at 85.62. December feeder cattle up $1.85 at $247.60. The January feeder cattle up $2.37 at $245.50. Thanks for joining us. This is the Ohio AgNet.